Ajahn?
Well, everyone's good. Yeah, everyone. Okay, good enough. Yeah. Okay. So we'll continue where we left off yesterday, and so we were talking about the first noble truth of suffering, and we're going to continue on that where we left off yesterday afternoon or whatever it was, and so we'll see what happens next. Thank you all, Mr. Lee. Okay. So we were talking about the idea that when you are separated from what you like, yeah, and you are associated with what you dislike, and you don't get what you want, then you suffer. It's problematic. It's always difficult. And when you look at this in a large picture, it is something that you see all the time. Every day you have this problem, always, sometimes in small ways, sometimes in large ways. And it's a very useful reflection to remember that this is the nature of the world. So when you have problems in Hong Kong, when you have problems anywhere, this is part of this idea of being separated from what you like. You have an idea of Hong Kong as a peaceful place, a nice place to live, and suddenly it changes, and it's not as peaceful anymore as it used to be. That is painful, it's hard to take, it's difficult, and this is the nature of the world. I was just reflecting the other day, and I was thinking that sometimes people, they ask me, where are you from? I'm from Norway. Well, now, probably, like from Australia, I'm not sure where I'm from anymore, but I used to be from Norway before. And people say, oh, Norway, Scandinavia, this is kind of the model society in the world, yeah, really, really nice. But I don't see it like a model society. Sure, you know, United Nations kind of puts it high on the index, all kind of indexes and this thing, and that's kind of nice, it's kind of good. But when I go there, what I see change. I see things always moving around, I see deterioration, I see people being like people everywhere, people being greedy, people being angry, some people being nice, of course, there's always nice people, so people are always a mix of everything. And I see change, and I see things moving along, and it might be a model society today, but tomorrow it might be at the bottom of the list of societies. Yeah, things change so fast. So you don't really attach too much to this idea. It's too easy to think, yeah, Scandinavia is a good society, and then you kind of attach to that idea, and then one day it goes downhill, and then you suffer as a consequence. There's a very powerful message here, this idea that everything is always moving, everything is always changing. And if you hold on to this, if you're attached to these ideas, if you crave for certain outcomes, certain results, you're always going to suffer as a consequence. And this is also very useful for your meditation practice, because very often you will find that the things that you think about in your meditation are the things that you attach to in this world, things that are important to you, your desires, your wants, and all of these kind of things. This is where the problems arise. The Buddha specifically says in one of his suttas, called I think it's called the Earth Remover Sutta, or something like that, where he talks about the various obstacles to meditation practice. And especially when you start to become peaceful, then these attachments to who you think you are, I am from such and such a country, such and such a family, I have such and such a reputation, these things come back to you, and your attachments then become very clear, because you think about these things, because we think about things that we are attached to. And this is how you reduce your attachments, is by remembering how uncertain it is, how things always change. There's nothing in the world worth holding on to, because there's no future there. There's no future because you don't know what the future is going to look like. Future is always so unreliable. So forget about all of that. Withdraw from that. The Buddha has this nice word in the suttas for this kind of thinking, and it's called the Sabba Loka Anavirattisanya, the perception of non-delight in the entire world. And it's this beautiful idea that everything in the world is so inherently problematic and out of control. How can you delight in any of that? As soon as you delight in those things, you're asking for suffering. Do you want to ask for suffering? Please, suffering, come and get me. I'm here, I'm ready. I'm like a lamb ready for the slaughter. Yeah, because you're basically asking for suffering as soon as you're attached to all these external things in the world that are so inherently unreliable. So this is a way of thinking, and initially it might be painful, because initially we are so used, it's hard to let go of these things. But as you reflect on it, as you find your refuge somewhere else, you find your refuge in the spiritual practice, you find your refuge in treating your fellow human beings with kindness and care and compassion. As you move, gradually move in that direction, it's not done overnight, it takes time. But as you do that, you find a new refuge, and then it becomes gradually, you're able to let go of those attachments and desires in the world. This is how you become a more spiritual person, if you like. It's a gradual thing, yeah? Don't expect these things to work overnight. It takes time. Gradually over time. And the reason why all of you are here is because you're already on that path. You already think like this to some extent, otherwise you wouldn't be here. Sometimes you don't even recognize that you think like this, but obviously you do. Yeah? Otherwise, being here would be pretty pointless. So this is the idea of being united from what you dislike and being separated from what you like and not getting what you want. This is inherent. It has to be like that. Except if you go all the way to the end of the spiritual path, that's really the only place where you can avoid this problem. So now I want to move on to the next aspect here. And the next aspect is the last part of the idea of suffering, and it says here in brief, the 5 grasping aggregates are suffering. Yeah, panch upadana kanda dukkha is the last one there. And so this is like the short version. Yeah, this is kind of all suffering can be included in this way. So if you understand the 5 khandhas properly, then you understand everything about suffering. This is really all you needed. But this is also the most profound part, and for that reason, the most difficult one to understand. 5 aggregates, 5 khandhas. What does it actually mean? Aggregate is a strange word, isn't it? It's kind of a weird word. Aggregate, usually when we talk about aggregate, in Australia we do quite a bit of building work, and you order aggregate. When you order aggregate, you get a pile of sand. Yeah, that's aggregate usually. This is kind of strange. So aggregate just means a grouping of a certain type, yeah, a kind of a category of a certain thing, a kind of. So you have an aggregate. These aggregates are just groupings, 5 kind of groups, and they can be called the 5 personality groups, for example. Yeah, these are the 5 aspects of a person that the Buddha talks about. Why does he talk about these particular 5 aspects? So just to remind you, these aspects are form, yeah, or shape, rupa, vedana, which is kind of primary feelings of good and bad, perception, and how we relate to the world, sankhara, the will, and vijnana, the consciousness or awareness, the ability to be aware. So the 5 khandhas, panchupadana khandha. Why does the Buddha talk about these things in particular? What is it about these things that are special? What is special about these things is that this is where we tend to have desires, where we tend to attach, where we tend to see a sense of self. Yeah? And the sense of self is the underlying, the root problem of everything in Buddhism. As long as you have a sense of self, all the other problems emerge from that sense of self. When you have a sense of self, you will desire. When you have a sense of self, you will be angry. You will want to protect yourself. You get angry, you get violent. You desire because the self wants to be satisfied. Because you have a sense of self, you attach. You attach to those qualities you take to be you, and then that expands out into the world because you have a nationality and all of these other aspects outside as well. So this is where those attachments and desires happen. Yeah, this is where the sense of self lurks. It lurks in these 5 khandhas, and that's why the Buddha talks about these 5 khandhas in this way. That's why they are so important. So what are they? How can we relate to these 5 khandhas? Yeah, these 5 aspects of personal existence, or aspects of personality. And 5 khandhas is what you are experiencing right now. This is the 5 khandhas. Yeah, so what are you experiencing now? Okay, room, yeah, people, sun is shining outside, beautiful weather here in Hong Kong. I'm very impressed with the weather you have over here. Yeah, so you have a few political problems, but you have nice weather at least. Yeah, you see the positive, in things. So, and then you see, what else do you see? You hear some sound. Yeah, someone is talking. Yeah, and so this is what your experience right now. This is the 5 khandhas. And that experience can then be divided up into these 5 aspects where the sense of self lurks. So the first aspect is called rupa in Pali. Rupa means form like shape. Yeah. So when you look out, you see shapes. Yeah, you see ceilings, you see windows, you see a blackboard, actually a whiteboard, it's not really a blackboard. You see whatever it is, shapes. And this is basically all it is the ability to recognize things in your visual field, if you want. Rupa is also the idea of touch. Yeah, you feel things. Kind of this is quite nice and soft, sitting on this one hand, not too hard. And so all our experience of touch is also part of rupa. This is rupa. And we attach to forms. Yeah, when you look at yourself in the mirror, you think that's me in the mirror. So you're attached to that form in the mirror. And this is why it is difficult sometimes to get old, because your form starts to deteriorate. Yeah, you get old and things fall apart, and you kind of grieve over your kind of youth is gone, and you grieve over that because it is better to be young than to be old, because you are stronger, you're more beautiful, and all of these things when you are younger. Yeah, so you attach, this is where we attach to things. So form is one of those basic aspects you have. Even more important than form you can overcome through deep meditation, but even more important is the idea of feeling. This is called Vedana in Pali. And feeling means, it doesn't mean emotion. Sometimes feeling means emotion in English, but it means feeling in the sense of whether you like something, or you dislike something, or you are neutral about things in the world. Yeah? And everything, all our experiences have that aspect to them, that you either like them or you dislike them, or you are neutral about them. And this is such an important thing, because this is what gives life meaning. Yeah, if there wasn't any feeling there would be no meaning to life. It is feeling which drives you towards certain things that you desire. You want the good things, you don't want the bad feelings. So this is what gives life meaning. If there wasn't any feeling, then life would be completely meaningless. You would look out, you would see the good weather, but it wouldn't give rise to a good feeling. So it would be neutral, whether it's grey or raining or snowing outside. I don't think you get much snow here in Hong Kong, but still, it wouldn't make any difference, because there's no feeling associated with it. Life would be completely meaningless, completely without goal, completely without purpose. So feeling is absolutely fundamental to the idea of existence. It is what drives us all the time. All desire, all craving, all wanting, everything that makes us act in the world is driven by these Vedana feelings. So in some ways, this can be, in certain way of looking at it, this is maybe the most important of these 5 khandhas, because it ties us to samsaric existence. It drives us forward, encourages us to act and to live in the world. So notice feeling, very important. See how you react to feelings all the time, how we are the slave to these feelings, always kind of running around because of these things. So these are very important. By understanding feelings, understanding how they are permanent, how they cannot be controlled, and eventually you get fed up with all of existence because you understand it is inherently problematic. Then there is perception, the third one, sanya in Pali. So some of you may know a little bit of Pali, I know some of you don't know a little bit of Pali. The Venerable over there knows a little bit of Pali, is that right? Know a little bit of Pali? Yeah? Okay, a little bit of Pali. It's very good to know a bit of Pali and also ancient Chinese. That's really cool, because then you can kind of compare the Pali with the Chinese and all this kind of things. That's really nice. So sanya is perception, and perception means your ability to make sense of the world. Yeah? So when you look out, not when you look out here, if you see the air conditioner, that is a perception. You perceive it as an air conditioner. If you came from Mars, you've never seen an air conditioner before, you would have no idea what this was about. You wouldn't be able to perceive it in the same way. So when you grow up, you learn to perceive the world. Yeah, when I look out into the hall here, I see good people there. I see people who are friendly. Yeah, so you have a positive perception of the people around you. Sometimes you perceive people who are not friendly, maybe hostile or not so nice. Yeah, so all of these things are part of the idea of perception. It's how we make sense of the world, how you divide the world, how you categorize it, how things kind of make sense. Sometimes you hear about people who have been blind from birth, yeah, and then somehow they have an operation when they become adults, so they can see. So everyone, yeah, great. Now we're going to help them to see again. Yeah, you never see it in your life. Aren't you looking forward to seeing? It's not going to be great. You can see, and then when the sight gets restored, they can't make sense of anything. They always see this blur of color without any kind of ability to make sense of it. That is because the brain hasn't got used to, over long periods of time, to make sense of the world. The idea of perception, being able to discriminate and distinguish, hasn't been developed. Yeah? That gives you some idea what perception is about. All you see is this blur of shapes and colors. And actually, the interesting thing was that this person who this happened to, they said, it was the most terrible thing that happened to me, to get sight back. It was absolutely awful, because we all think you're going to be happy when you can see, but it was terrible, because they couldn't make any sense. There was this impact on your mind all the time, without any kind of useful purpose. Yeah, so we think sight is good, but actually, maybe not seeing is better. Is that true? Do you think not seeing might be better than seeing? Is it better to be blind or better to have vision? It's an interesting point, isn't it? It's a very interesting point. And the reason why it is so interesting is because when you go into deep meditation, what you are doing is you're giving up your ability to sense. Sometimes the reason why you cannot go into deep meditation is because you're attached to your senses. I want to see him. I can't give up my eyes. But actually, in really deep meditation, you have to be willing to go blind. It's as if you go blind. That's why it is so hard to do sometimes, because we are attached to the idea of seeing. Even though not seeing is far more pleasant than seeing, as soon as you close your eyes, you start to feel more peaceful, because the visual impact is so powerful and so disturbing. Yeah? Even though it is better, we are so attached to it, we can't let go. And this is one of the blockages in deep meditation practice. So all this perceiving is problematic. One of the things that you see as you meditate is that your perceptions are getting more and more simplified. More and more, and there's less and less perception going on. More and more simple. And the simpler it is, the more happy you are. Complex perceptions are always problematic. I'll talk a bit more about this in a second, because I will talk a little bit about how to contemplate the five khandhas, because it's an interesting point as well. So that is perception. Then you have sankhara. Sankhara in the sutras is this is similar to chaitana we're talking about the other day. This is the will. Yeah, what is the will? The will is what makes you act in the world. That's what makes me speak now. I want to speak. Yeah? Maybe I don't actually. Well, good question. Do I want to speak? Maybe I shouldn't speak. Actually, no, I'll continue. I kind of feel obliged. I've been flown all the way to Hong Kong, so I better speak. Otherwise, I get into trouble probably. So I better speak a little bit. So I'll speak a bit more. But this is what makes you speak. Yeah? This is what makes you listen. Yeah? Or maybe it makes you not listen. Then you're really bored. You're kind of fantasizing about this and that. This happens sometimes. Yeah? You're here, and actually you're not really here at all. You're kind of off in a fantasy world there. You know, this is true, and that's okay. Please do so. You don't have to be present. Just because you're physically present doesn't mean you have to be mentally present. You can be mentally wherever you like. I don't really mind at all that, as long as you are relaxed and enjoying the big picture here. You don't have to enjoy every small picture thing. So sankharas is what makes us act in the world. It is the will. It is the intention. It is the driving force inside of us that makes us act. Yeah, very important part of human life, because very often we identify with the doer. We are doers, and we are people who get things done, and very strong identity for most of us. And this too is something that you gradually give up in your meditation practice. If you identify with too much, it's hard again to get into deep meditation. And the last of these five khandhas is the ability just to be aware, just to know what is happening. This is called consciousness, usually in English. Just the fact that you know what is going on, at any time. That is awareness, consciousness, vijnana in Pali. So these are the 5 khandhas, and if you have a sense of self, and pretty much everyone has a sense of self, it hides somewhere in those 5 khandhas, and that's where you find it. And our job, one of the kind of ultimate ideas on the Buddhist path, is then to uncover that sense of self in those 5 khandhas. But before I get to that, what you will notice here is that if you think about those things I've been talking about, pretty much, that's pretty much all we are. You can't really think of much beside that. If you take those 5 khandhas, well, they pretty much encompass everything. Yeah? Your will, your awareness, your perceptions of the world, your feelings in life, isn't much apart from that. It's pretty much everything. And here the Buddha says, it's dukkha. Yeah, this is why I mean it is so profound. It is so profound because what the Buddha is saying here, he doesn't say that there is suffering in life. He says that life is suffering. That's basically what he's saying here. This is one of those discussions you often hear in Buddhist circles. Is it that, oh yeah, life has suffering? Okay, most people can agree with that. Some people don't even agree with that, and I would call that denial. Yeah, there's no suffering in life. I mean, which planet are you living on if you think there's no suffering in life? I mean, it's so obvious that there's suffering in life. But that is not really, in the final analysis, the Buddha says that it's not that there is suffering in life. Life itself is problematic. It is suffering. And this is why it is so profound. And this is why when the noble ones, when they see happiness, it is a completely different type of happiness from what we see, from what ordinary people see. So, but I'm not going to talk too much more about that. But what I'm going to say, how can you uncover this? How can we actually gradually gain insight and understand why this is the case? And it's actually much simpler than you think it is. Sometimes the idea of insight in Buddhism may seem very mystical and very profound. And of course, in some ways it is. But it's also very obvious in many ways. And this is why I want to talk about very briefly here. And usually on these courses I talk about the Anapanasati Sutta, which is the sutta on mindfulness of breathing. And in that sutta it gives some very interesting instructions on how to contemplate, how to reflect on the meditation experience. And what it says in there is that you contemplate anicca, viraga, nirodha, and patinissagga. And these 4 terms, they mean anicca means impermanence, unreliability. Viraga means like things fading away. Nirodha means cessation, the ending, the stopping of things. And patinissagga means to give up, to relinquish things. And these are 4 degrees of impermanence that we are all kind of trying to contemplate. And what you are contemplating when you contemplate these things is that you're contemplating your experience in meditation. So first of all, you meditate. And the purpose of meditation should really be to become as still as you possibly can, because the more still you are, the more powerful your insight is going to be. I'll read you a short sutta extract afterwards to show you the power and the importance of meditation, especially samadhi meditation, deep meditation. It's incredibly important to have real insight into the nature of reality. So you go as deep as you can in your meditation, yeah? And then you look back on that experience. That is where insight happens. It's simple, yeah, it's very easy, it's very straightforward. Ordinary meditation, you look back on your experience, and as you do that, you start to understand what is going on there. And what is it that you understand? Well, what you understand, and this is something every one of you can relate to a little bit, yeah? You get a little bit peaceful. Why are things peaceful? Well, the reason why things are peaceful is because things are actually calming down. Things calming down means things are fading away. They are ceasing. Yeah, your mind becomes more peaceful. There's less thought going on in the mind. And there's already a type of ending, a type of cessation. And when that happens, you know that there is less perception. Perception is everything you experience in the world, how you make sense of things, including the thinking mind, is part of perception. So as perceptions calm down in this way, and thinking is also driven by the will, yeah, when there's a lot of will, we think a lot. the more you drive yourself around in the world, the more you think about things, you withdraw that kind of activity in the world, the will calms down there. So there's less things going on, things are ceasing inside. What does it feel like? It feels happy. Yeah, the less there is of these five khandhas, when they start to fade away, you start to feel happy. And this is kind of the trick. It's as simple as that. You start to feel the diminishing of the five khandhas. This is what you experience in your meditation practice. The khandhas fading away and eventually ceasing completely. And you see that there is happiness coming out of this. Not only is there happiness, but of course there is impermanence. They are impermanent, that's why they can fade away. That's why they can become less of them. That's why they eventually cease. This is the kind of very definition of impermanence, changeability. Yeah? So you see, and the deeper the meditation goes, the less perception you have, the less will you have, the less there is anything, the more powerful that understanding of impermanence and suffering and happiness is going to be. And also, on top of that, you also start to understand the idea of non-self. And the reason why you understand non-self is because if you can give something up, then by definition it cannot be a self. A self is something that you control. It's something that is there, it's something that you have access to. Yeah? That is the definition of something which is part of you. So if you can give something up completely, if the will can disappear, and it does in deep meditation practice, if the perceptions of the world, the seeing, the hearing, if all of these things can disappear completely, they cannot be part of the essence of who you are. By definition, because you can no longer access these things. This is how simple it is. This is how insight happens. It's really, really simple. So if you understand that meditation is happiness, maybe not every time, but some of the time it's happiness. Yeah, it's not going to work every time because the mind is so, moving around all the time, never stable enough to always have success. But occasionally you get a taste of the happiness of meditation. When you get that taste, you already understood something about happiness and dukkha in the world. It's that simple. It's not very hard. And so what is so beautiful about this is that when the Buddha explains the idea of calm and insight, samatha and vipassana, it is actually very simple to understand. And it is much, to me, it is much more profound, much better than the kind of usual way that meditation is understood, especially in Theravada Buddhism, where the main resource for understanding vipassana or understanding insight is the Visuddhimagga, is usually the main resource. But actually, the suttas are much more straight to the point, much simpler and much more reliable in my point of view. This is how you understand insight and how you understand calm. The more calm you become, the more powerful the insight, because it's more obvious that things are impermanent, that they are suffering. Yeah, all the things you have given up are suffering. That's why you feel happy now. And also that they are non-self. But to really understand fully what these five aggregates are, you have to gain samadhi. And I will just read out a very short extract from you from one of the suttas on this sheet here. I'm not going to follow these things in exactly the right order because I like to kind of mess around a little bit. That's kind of I learned that from Ajahn Brahmāli, by the way, so you can complain to Ajahn Brahmāli if you have a problem. But this is the sutta on the bottom of the first page, and it's called Development of Immersion, Samadhi Bhavana. Yeah? And this, you see the little SN. SN means Samyutta Nikaya, Connected Discourses of the Buddha. And it says 22. 22 is the Khandha Samyutta, 22nd collection of the five khandhas. And this is the 5th discourse in that particular collection. That's why it says 5. I'm just trying to kind of get you used to this annotation so you understand how this is going on, how this works. So this is just a very short extract, but actually very short, even shorter than I had expected. Okay, so this is how it goes. So I have heard at Savatthi. Savatthi was the place the Buddha usually stayed. Mendicants develop immersion. In other words, develop samadhi. Yeah? A mendicant who has immersion, in other words, someone who has developed samadhi truly understands. Yata Bhuta Jnana, or something like that. I'm not sure exactly what the Pali is, but that's roughly what it is. What do they truly understand? The origin and the ending of form, the origin and ending of feeling, the origin and ending of perception, the origin and ending of choices, the origin and ending of consciousness, the five khandhas. Yeah? If you want to really understand these things, you have to develop samadhi. This is what he's saying here. And what this points to is that the deeper your calm, the deeper your stillness in your meditation, the more ability you have to see things properly. And to fully understand things, you need to develop samadhi fully. You need to go to the eighth factor of the Noble Eightfold Path, Samma Samadhi, which is also, the four jhanas and these things, and then you can have full insight into these things. But still, little bit of samatha, little bit of calm will give you a little bit of insight, and you just deepen it and deepen it and deepen it until one day you have the Big Bang. Yeah, the Big Bang. The Big Bang is not the universe. The Big Bang is the bang inside of you when you see things clearly. That's the Big Bang. Yeah. That's the Big Bang that matters. The Big Bang in the universe is kind of exciting to read about, but in the end it doesn't really cut any ice, it's kind of cut the mustard, it's kind of irrelevant. Yeah, it is the Big Bang inside that really matters. So make sure you define Big Bang in the right way, otherwise it's not going to be all that useful. So this is how it works. Yeah, samatha and vipassana. Sometimes it sounds so complicated. You wonder what it is. How do you develop vipassana? How do you develop samatha? What's the difference? This is all you have to do. Yeah, become peaceful. Watch the breath, enjoy meditation. Afterwards, when you come out, reflect back on the experience. Samatha and vipassana. Anyway, I can talk more about samatha and vipassana later on, because actually it is a very interesting subject and very useful. But for now, I think maybe we can leave it at that, and I hope it makes a little bit sense to you. And if it doesn't make sense, if you have any questions, please write some questions down for this evening, and we'll take the questions then, and we can then focus more on these things. So that is the first noble truth. And the next thing that comes up here now is the second noble truth, and the third noble truth, and the fourth noble truth. But before I go on to these other noble truths, I want to talk more about the first noble truth of suffering. Because as you might expect, it is talked about in many different ways in the suttas. Yeah, the Buddha talks about this from different angles and different ways. And the more ways you understand this from, the easier it is for you to relate to this noble truth of suffering. So I'm going to look at these various ways of thinking about suffering, the first noble truth, before I go on to the next noble truths. Okay, I'll just get started with the next one. Might as well do that now, and then we have a break in a minute. Maybe, actually, this is kind of a set. Let's have the break now instead. Let's have a 10-minute break, and then I'll see you back again here about 10:15. I think it's probably going to